that as to whether or not they would give the approval. I look at if they didn't give the approval, and as Councillor Huffman just pointed out, we repair the dam and the lake doesn't change, and then we don't get the approval to dredge the lake, then now we have Silver Lake in its current state. It remains there when perhaps a park would have been better in allowing it to return to its natural state. So I'm wondering if it wouldn't be prudent to invite the Port Dover Waterfront Association to our next, I think, or one date I looked at here was March 19th to the CIC meeting, to publicly comment on that private funding, their sort of ambitions towards raising money, whether or not they feel that Norfolk County should be responsible for dredging the lake in the future. And finally, that if they weren't to get the approval from the MNR, perhaps it would be prudent to speak with them and see what their appetite is for doing that. And if there is zero appetite from the MNR in providing us with that approval, then perhaps, you know, that might change people's opinion moving forward. I think that it's clear that this council will make a decision on this, and we are going to move forward one way or another, but we really need to understand those options and look at it from that perspective, that Silver Lake is not going to change just by repairing the dam. There is more work that needs to be done. Norfolk County doesn't have the money to go and dredge Silver Lake. That's not something that I believe is on the table. I could be wrong, but that's not the impression that I've gotten. And so if you can't get the approval from the MNR to do the dredging, would it maybe be better to not to decommission the dam? Again, I do support the repair of the dam if the Waterfront Association would be able to speak to those issues. So I'm wondering if we might be able to invite them to a future CIC meeting.
Okay, I take it there's waterfront preservation people here, and so you want this on March 19th? Is that the date?
I was just thinking March 19th. It might give some people some time to perhaps make some phone calls to MNR, to fisheries, to understand, you know, whether or not, again, there is an appetite there to at least give those approvals. That would be the first hurdle. And if they didn't give those approvals, then maybe it gives people time to think about whether or not that's really what they want. I mean, certainly I understand that this is a part of Port Dover. What other dam gets a birthday party? You know, that's amazing. So, but we have to look at all the other factors, that we have these regulatory agencies that could provide an insurmountable hurdle. And if they do provide an insurmountable hurdle, then the lake never changes and it just stays as is. And I don't think anybody wants that either. Okay.
If the dam water were raised to what it was 20 years ago, we wouldn't probably have the issue with having to dredge Silver Lake. But I'm going to ask the clerk to comment. Is March 19th, is that doable for us?
Okay.
Thank you, through the chair. That won't be a problem. I could pull up what our agenda looks like, but regardless of that, we can certainly invite the association to come and make a deputation. And if what I'm hearing the mayor is potentially thinking of making a motion on is to defer this staff report to the March 19th meeting and invite the association to come and do the deputation.
Okay, I'm going to ask the mayor. Do you have a motion prepared for us, Madam Mayor? No?
No, but I did just learn through Councillor Martin, I didn't realize that they had spoken to the MNR already, so we could do it even sooner if they preferred. We could even do it 2 weeks from now on the 19th.
Okay, 2 weeks from now? Is that good? Okay, where's the recommendation that we're going to put on the floor here?
Through the chair, the motion that I have is that report 1908 Meisner Dam response to Council's direction be deferred to the February 19th, 2019 Council and Committee meeting, and that the Port Dover Waterfront Association be invited to the February 19th Council and Committee meeting to make a deputation respecting staff report 1908.
Okay, mover and a seconder? No? I need a mover and a seconder before we can discuss it. Mayor Chop and Councillor Rabbits, mover and seconder. Okay, now we'll put it to the floor for discussion. Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Chairperson Columbus. My question is, I like this idea, but my question is, are there other groups who have different agendas who will want to come forward and speak to this issue? That's my issue. So if we're extending the offer for one group to do a deputation because they have, I mean, not an agenda in a negative way, I don't mean it that way. They have one course of action that they're looking at, whereas I know that there's a couple other groups in Dover who have different ideas. So I'm just curious about that. I just want to make sure that we're...
I think the Deputy Clerk was going to make a comment on that.
Through the chair, I just wanted to say that certainly staff could advise that the report is coming back, although it will be made public in the minutes, and of course those that are viewing today. But also anyone can make a deputation, and if there is a staff report pertaining to that issue, then we would approve it.
Okay. Okay, Mayor Chop, you made the motion.
The reason that I've just suggested the Port Dover Waterfront Association and only extended the invite to them in terms of this was purely from the perspective of the dredging aspect, that they were the group that suggested that they would be able to raise the private financing to be able to do this. So it was only to look at it to see whether or not Silver Lake had a hope even of being potentially dredged. And so that again, that was just the reason for that.
Okay, Councilor Rabbits, you're the seconder. Your mic, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Columbus. And through the chair, I just wanted to ask maybe for a friendly amendment. I realize I did second this motion, and I am in full support of it. I wanted to strike do nothing off of the table. I know that staff will likely have a little bit of information coming forward when we have the debate or when we hear more from our public. And I wanted to see if the mover would be amenable to driving towards a solution and taking doing nothing, off the table. I'd hate for us to have this debate and it resulting in us, having another failed motion and being basically doing a circle and ending up right where we ended up.
Okay, back to Mayor Chop.
So the motion was to defer the report. However, to defer the report. So it would be just deferring the report in its entirety. However, if you would like to word it differently, I'm certainly amenable to that. And we could also perhaps do a division of the question if we want to, in terms of doing away with the EA assessment today. We would be able to, we could take a vote on that, and we could also make a motion to strike the do nothing. Per Councillor Rabbits, and then we could make a further motion to simply invite the Port Dover Waterfront, we'll receive the report as information and invite the Port Dover Waterfront Association to the February next meeting.
Okay.
Does that work?
I'm going to ask the Deputy Clerk to read the recommendation the way she feels it's been presented so far, okay, because there's been some changes. So.
Through the chair, it would take me a couple minutes just to actually wordsmith it, but if committee is okay, I can report back shortly. But essentially it would be that the report be received as information, and that something along the words that the report itself would be deferred to the February 19th Council and Committee meeting, with the exception of the sort of the do nothing option and the EA, and that the Port Dover Waterfront Association be invited to make a deputation respecting that staff report. Again, I would wordsmith it and fix it, and I can certainly report out shortly.
Madam Mayor?
Stephanie, I just had a quick thought here. How about that the report be received as information would be one motion. The second motion would be that Council does not support a do nothing option. And the third motion would be that we vote on whether or not we move forward with the Class EA assessment, as worded in there.
Okay, we'll deal with each one individually. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, so I'll call on the Deputy Clerk to read well, I'll read that one. That report 19-08, Miser Dam response to Council direction be received as information. I need a mover and a seconder. Mayor Chop and Councillor Martin. Any discussion on that? Those in favor? Carried unanimously. The second one, Madam Clerk, if you got that.
Through the chair, that council does not support the do-nothing option.
Mover to seconder, Councillor Martin, Councillor Rabbits. Those in favor to do nothing? That's carried. Thank you. And thirdly,
Through the chair, the third option or the third motion would be with respect to the to undertaking a Class EA, and I just would need a specific motion to that.
a specific motion with respect to undertaking the Class EA. Mayor Chop.
It's as worded in the report here, and that council support the commencement of a municipal environmental assessment funded from the remaining capital budget for the earlier repairs. So
Okay.
So everybody's paying attention to the wording in that. It would, of course, need a mover and a seconder for it to
So a
go
mover
through.
and a seconder, Councillor Van Passen.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. You're the mover and a seconder, Councillor Hoffman, of this motion that council support the commencement of a municipal class environmental assessment funded from the remaining capital budget for the earlier repairs. Is that the one? Okay. Those in favor? Pardon me? Oh, okay, discussion. Right, sorry. You're on the ball, Councillor Taylor, yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So without an EA, there isn't an option to actually raise the water level beyond what it is now, or can we still raise the water level without an EA?
Through the chair, you would be strongly advised to pursue a class environmental assessment if council wanted to raise the level higher than it is now. That way you would be complying with the legislation, but assuming you don't, it would be more or less repair existing and maintain levels at their current.
Go ahead.
One more question through you, Mr. Chair. If down the road, raising the water level is decided upon, an EA can just take place then, correct? Or would it be different things would happen to the dam?
Through the chair, there's probably a couple of different options. If we're just simply repairing existing, it's going to be far more simpler and less cost intensive than it is to rebuild new to a higher level. So there's going to be costs, whether it's just a matter of putting a little bit more into it to be able to achieve that. It's quite unlikely. It would be a significant undertaking. I think that decision needs to be made early on, and then you've got those options going forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to actually council, I'm sure that you have been inundated with emails from community members, but it is not the wish of community to go forward with this EA. Additionally, what Mayor Chop was speaking to, just so everyone is on the same page, is the dredging would occur supplementary to, instead of raising water levels so that the lake could be used for recreational uses. So that's kind of why we have this situation juggled, so we can get a commitment to dredge as an option to water raising.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay. Going to ask the clerk to read that last one.
So this one is through the chair with respect to the, what was the recommendation in the staff report, and council support the commencement of a municipal class environmental assessment funded from the remaining capital budget for earlier repairs.
We did have a mover and a seconder. Who was Van Passen and Taylor. Okay. The vote. Those in favor? No one's in favor. Those opposed? That is defeated. Now. Okay, Madam Mayor, the clerk's just whispered in my ear. Perhaps you have a motion or recommendation that you want to put forth? Or?
That the Port Dover Waterfront Association be invited to speak to council in regards to the dredging of Silver Lake on February, at the next CIC meeting.
Okay. Good enough. The mayor makes the motion. Seconder? Councilor Martin? Discussion? No discussion? Those in favor? Carry unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're done there.
Starting until 5 o'clock and supper's not arriving until 6, so what you could probably do is just look at your agenda. What I would suggest doing is, sorry, do you mind if I just look at your
Sure.
It's, you could do that, or you could probably go right into that one. Look at it.
Okay, we will move on to staff report on page 43. This is the UVC disinfection system donation with respect to Norview Lodge. I believe that's ultraviolet something. We have Mr. Nolan here. That's on page 43 of your agenda package. Marlene, are you starting this off, or is it Mr. Bill Nolan? Okay, Bill, you can give us your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce to Council Mr. Bill Nolan, who's our Administrator of Norview Lodge, and he will be presenting the report this afternoon for your consideration.
Excuse me, can you tone it down in the far southwest corner, please? We can't hear the report.
Through the chair to council, this report, HSS 19-13, is in regards to Norview staff were made a generous donation by the Who Did It Club of approximately $75,000 for a UVC disinfection system for Norview Lodge. When the Who Did It Club presented all the information, as you can see later in the report, it does say disinfection system guarantees the most effective cleansing possible in germ elimination. And it does go in to show some test results, the reduction of C. diff, MSRA, VRE, and more bacteria and reduction in hospital bathrooms than that would be the same for long-term care homes. What staff is asking is that the report be received as information and, that Council exempt from Norfolk County Policy ECS-02 to permit an unsolicited proposal and a single source procurement from Class 1 Incorporated through the Who Did It Club for the UV disinfection system. And further that Council accept the donation in the amount of $75,000 from the Who Did It Club. And further that the 2019 approved capital plan be amended to include the $65,000 donation from the Who Did It Club for the purchase of the system, as well as the $10,000 donation, in addition, donation to be allocated to future levy-supported operating budgets to complete the preventative maintenance of the UVC disinfection system. And finally, that the Administrator of Norview Lodge will be authorized to execute an agreement with Class 1 to the amount of $75,000 for the purchase of a UVC disinfection system, including a 5-year maintenance agreement in the amount of $10,000, with an option to extend the agreement for one additional term of 5 years at a cost of $1,000 per year plus cost of parts. And with that, I respectfully submit the report, and we'll answer any questions from council.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. You did a good job of reading the recommendations out. Questions to Mr. Nolan? Councillor Huffman and Mayor.
Thank you, Chairperson Columbus. I just have a quick question. Was this something that was on the books for Norview? Was this something that was going to be put into the capital budget or anything in terms of the UVC thing?
So through the chair to Councillor Huffman, it was not. It was something that was presented to us by the Who Did It Club, and hence we're bringing it forward for your consideration.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mayor Chomp.
So I had the pleasure this morning of meeting with 2 members from the Who Did It Club that came to speak to me about this generous offer that they're making. The owner, the company actually that provides this UV system is actually originally from Norfolk, and he himself has actually offered to front $90,000 towards it, so it's already been reduced significantly. The only comment that I have to make, certainly I think this is a big opportunity for Norfolk to take this on. The one comment, however, is just that the total amount, to my knowledge, with the conversation was actually the 105 was the quote from Class 1 that incorporates their donation, and that the additional 5 years was another 5,000, and when taking off the Who Did It Club's generous donation of 75,000, that actually leaves an adjustment for the capital budget of 35,000, not the 75 as articulated in the report.
Did you get all that, Mr. Nolan? Question?
Pardon me, through the chair.
Did you get all of the mayor's question?
Through the chair to Mayor Chap, I'm just looking at the information that you're questioning, so if you can just give me a second.
To you, Mr. Chair, would it be okay if I took the quote over and just explained it?
Please, yep, please do. Okay, perhaps we should be discussing this openly. Okay. Okay. Okay, it's back on the floor. What was your question again, Madam Mayor?
Well, we're just being asked to approve something for the capital budget. I just wanted to make sure that the number was correct there, that we're not approving.
And is it correct?
I think we have ourselves sorted
You're on the same
now.
page, maybe? Yeah. Good.
I don't. In any event, I think that we should probably just, we could work out the numbers afterwards.
Okay.
And
Sure.
if everybody with the vote could simply surround whether or not we are going to move forward with this initiative, and which again, I think is an incredibly generous offer on both on behalf of Class 1 and of the Who Did It Club.
Perfect. Okay. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to confirm, we use these resolutions in order to change the budgets. It's technically, this is a budget amendment report, so we would need to know what the numbers are exactly in order to have the proper backup to adjust the budget. So I'm not sure how we can work that out today.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Well, we can possibly housekeep it at the full council meeting next week. Okay. So do we wish to defer this? Okay, the deputy clerk says it'd probably be better to defer it if we want the right numbers in the recommendation for next week.
The only other alternative would be to approve it, and we could pull it from the minutes next week and then insert the correct
Okay,
number.
there's another way to do it. Right on. Okay, so, yes, Ms. Miranda.
Mr. Chair, the Who Did It Club is here, so if we would like to have him speak to it, if that would be okay with council, he could possibly articulate that to assist us with making the decision. My understanding is that there is a timeline for the Who Did It Club, so it can actually be processed with February the 11th, so a delay in approval or a resolution from council would potentially put the very generous donation at risk. But if acceptable, I'd ask that that the Who Did It Club present.
Okay, would Mr. Who Did It Club member be here, please?
I apologize.
JJ,
I'm
welcome.
not sure what his full name.
If you could just clarify things for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I think the quote is for $195,000, if I'm not mistaken. The charitable donation that Class 1 is looking to make towards that is $90,000. The Who Did It Club is in the process of approving a $75,000 donation towards the purchase. So I believe that would leave the county with $30,000.
Okay, I guess that clarifies things better.
Just the additional maintenance contract was the
Does
other
anybody
five.
have any questions for JJ? Not? Yes, Councilor Van Passen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask the member Who Did It Club if you could remind me of the dates of some of the best, well, no, the best barbecues and fundraising events that you do, so that council members would have a chance to get a ticket if there's any left available for this summer.
Absolutely, I can do that. Thanks for raising that question, Councilor Van Passen. Yes, we have a stag barbecue on the third Wednesday in July, and a mixed barbecue on the third Wednesday in August. And if anybody on council or in this room for that matter needs a ticket, just contact me.
Because of your healthy donation, I have allowed you to put an advertisement forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to answer the question as to timeline, our year end is in March, so the accountant would love it if we made a substantial donation before our year end, and that's why we kind of put a timeline on this, because we are a registered charity, and so we have to turn over, a certain number of dollars each year.
Okay. Is there any further questions to Mr. Knott? No? Go ahead. You can have your seat, please. You're let free. Just if you can push that stop button off, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, we're back to the recommendation here. Mover to seconder, Mayor Chop and Councillor Huffman. Movers and seconders. And the motion's printed on pages 44 and 45, and Mr. Bill Nolan did a good job of reading it. So I'm not going to, because the numbers could be skewed somewhat, we're going to get the actual numbers right next week. So I'm going to ask for the raising of the hands. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed? That's carried. Thank you. So will that need to be pulled? Okay, well, I'm going to ask you to pull it right now. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. We're going to move on to one of the other reports, and which one would you prefer, Deputy Clerk?
I would go to the development.
Okay, we're going to go to Development and Cultural Services and Public Works, okay?
Yep, so we'll do the DCS 1919.
DCS 1919. This report will be given by Matt and Pam, okay? So whenever Stephanie's ready here. This is 2018 Development Statistics Review and Update. Go for it.
Thanks very much. And I just would like Council to know that with me today is Devin Hunter, Director of Development Engineering. We have Richard Roberts. He's the Supervisor for our Geographical Information Systems. And Fritz Enslin, who's our Chief Building Official and Director of Bylaw Enforcement. They have some statistics in this report as well. I'll be presenting all of the stats today, but if there are some specific questions about their departments, I will be deferring to them. So we'll start in the building department. In 2018, we received 1,188 building permits that accounted for about $100 million in building projects across all sectors. Specifically, there was $13 million in agriculture-related development, $4 million in industrial development, $3.7 million in institutional development, $11 million in commercial, $65 million in residential, and $3.3 million in miscellaneous, which covers such things as on-site sewage disposal systems, signs, and tents. There were a total of 263 new dwelling units in 2018, and last year we also saw the introduction of a new position in the building department, which is our zoning examiner. This position reviews building permit applications. They also review and answer building permit and zoning related questions, and they have approximately 20 communications per day. In terms of the planning department summary, there were 273 development applications received. Of those, there was 83 consent or severance applications, 73 minor variances, 63 zoning amendments, 13 official plan amendments, 32 site plan applications, 2 condominium applications, 4 subdivisions, and 3 miscellaneous, which I believe were tower applications. We also had 42 pre-consultation meetings, and in total, the planning department received 5,865 inquiries, which were divided amongst phones, walk-in counters, and also emails. 2018 was also a big year for the planning department as we completed our official plan review, and now we don't have to do that for another 5 years, which is good news. Over in Geographical Information Systems, they provided mapping support for 273 development applications. GIS processing time averaged about 2.1 days per application. This was also a great year for GIS as they released the Norfolk County Open Data portal. In terms of web applications, they have 389 layers of information, and our internal web mapping system receives approximately 94 views per day. And we also have an external community web mapping system. In that system, there are 75 layers of information, and in 2018, it received 26,299 hits. In development engineering, just to give everybody an idea, so the development engineering provides a liaison between development and cultural services and public works, and they've been in operation since November of 2017 and are now at full staff complement. The average time based on available data to receive comments from public works in 2016 was approximately 8 weeks for first submission and 6 weeks for any subsequent submission. And since development engineering has moved in between those two divisions, first submissions are now 3.5 weeks and subsequent submissions are 1.5 weeks. So we have had a significant drop in the amount of time to process and provide comments on applications. They're also working on studying requirements for complete applications and conditions of development and formalizing design criteria. In 2019, we have a new initiative. It's called the Green Light Team. And Development Cultural Services is going to be implementing this team, which is consistent of a planner, an economic development officer, 2 building inspectors, and a development technologist. The idea behind this team is to streamline business development. They'll be processing community improvement grants, planning applications with development engineering review, and process building permit applications all at the same time. It's anticipated to increase communication and proactive customer service. And eventually, we're planning on rolling out, this is a pilot program that we're running, and we're going to be rolling this out to all of DCS in 2020. And that is it for our 2018 development statistics. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I like that green light team. It's better than green tape team. Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Matt Vaughn. I just didn't hear what you said when you mentioned what the miscellaneous charges were. Would you just repeat that for me, please? The application, sorry.
Yeah, for sure. So those are a combination of such things as deeming applications, part lot applications, and we also take in applications for things like cell phone towers.
Okay. Further questions? Mayor Chop?
The one thing that I'm just wondering, and I haven't seen it yet, my understanding is that under the Building Code Act, there's a mandatory requirement on, in fact, I'll read Section 7.4 of the Building Code Act. It says, it requires mandatory reporting on building permit fees for the 12-month period in order to enhance transparency to the public and ensure building permit fees do not exceed the anticipated reasonable expenses of administering and enforcing the Building Code Act and building code regulations. I do believe that Norfolk County does produce a financial report for this. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
And is it currently available publicly as required under the Act?
Through the chair, there is, I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to, but Appendix A of the report contains total value of construction for 2018 and 4 of the earlier years. Is that what you were looking for?
Well, I believe that, in fact, actually according to the Act, that we are supposed to be providing to the public an annual financial report that would specifically speak to revenue and direct and indirect costs and whether or not we have run a surplus or a deficit in that year, and that we in fact have a reserve, a building reserve fund balance. I'm pretty sure that we do that here. I've got an old one from 2013. But again, the Act requires that this information be available to the public, and it's come to me from a number of sources that in fact we have not been making that publicly available up until this point.
Go ahead, Fritz.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mayor Chop is correct. The Building Code Act requires that we do provide the annual reporting by the March date of the following year for the previous year. Those reports have been made available upon request. I believe the legislation requires that it's available should anyone request it, so it has been available. We have had opportunities to post it to various sites. We've shared it with the Home Builders Association and those that have annually requested that information. But we could certainly have that available on the website if that's wished by council. Certainly, it has been available upon request, and we have had requests, and that information was shared.
Okay, thank you. After we receive, if there's further questions, I'd like to make a motion in that regard.
Okay. Further questions? Okay. I guess we'll need a mover and a seconder, and the motion that report DCS 1919-2018 Development Services Review and Update be received as information. It's pretty simple. Mover, Councillor Rabbits, and Councillor Michelle is the seconder. No further discussion. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, you had something to add,
Okay,
Mayor Chop?
I'd just like to make a motion that the Building Division annual financial reports for Norfolk County, including the past 3 years, be made publicly available on the Norfolk County website.
Okay. Seconder? Councillor Huffman? Open it up for questions or comments, discussion. Call the vote then. Or did you have something, Councillor Taylor? Go ahead.
Just moving forward, should we put a timeline on that for how long it would take you to get that on the website? Would that be beneficial?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that could happen very quickly. We can have it on the website by the end of the week.
There you go.
Thanks.
And just for clarity, trailing 3, like at least back to 2016 or even further.
Okay. Everybody understand it? Called vote. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the deputations are not here till 5. Shall we go on to the next report? Or do you want a break? We'll carry on with the next report, which is our last report, I believe, and it's report 19-27, Development and Cultural Services and Public Works. We'll just wait for Stephanie here to pull it up on the screen. Okay. Okay, is this a tag team approach to this one? Who's leading off? Shannon?
Through you,
Okay,
Mr.
you've
Chair,
got
I
the
will
floor,
lead.
Shannon.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus. Good evening, or good afternoon, I guess it still is. This report and presentation is with respect to service monitoring and allocation. It has been prepared jointly between Development and Cultural Services as well as Public Works staff. And it is an information report that is being brought forward to provide update to council and information regarding the capacities of water and sanitary or wastewater in each of our 5 urban areas. What I do? Okay. In terms of the information, it has been evaluated. Each urban area has been evaluated based on the capacities in the plants, as well as the populations that are in play for each of the systems that we have currently in the county. So in terms of the numbers and the go forwards, the slides that you'll see have been broken down into to water. So this chart shows the water capacities that are currently available in each of our centers. The first column you'll see is the plant capacity. The second column you'll see is the existing demand that is currently there together with committed development. So those are subdivisions and developments that have received approvals in terms of capacities that have already been granted. The next column you'll find pending development, so those are applications that are currently in process that we have that we're aware of either through the zoning process, site plan process, or applications for plans of subdivision. And then the last column is the demands or the capacity that is remaining at the plant. As you can see, generally our plants are operating well. And however, there is some concerns with respect to Port Dover. You'll find a very similar outcome when we're looking at our sanitary or wastewater information in terms of our communities that are at hand, as well, and again, concerns in particular to Port Dover. This information is being brought forward to you at this time in terms of an information report, and together Development and Cultural Services together with Public Works will be reviewing and investigating options and opportunities with respect to the plants that are at hand. There are some upgrades that are being completed for some of the plants at this time, and some that are coming kind of online shortly. Together, myself together with Chris Baird are happy to answer any questions that you might have with respect to this information. Thank you.
Questions to either the Planning Department or Public Works? Councillor Huffman first, then Taylor.
Thank you, Chairperson Columbus. Okay, for 2 questions, layman's answers, layman's terms. How does one go into the negative?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Generally speaking, the development exceeds demand. So we've got either more that has been committed than we can provide through our systems as it stands right now, or we know that there is more demand and more development coming down the pipe than our plants will be able to handle.
Okay. I guess, yeah, still doesn't make sense to me. Then why development would be allowed to proceed if we know that it's not capable? So, and again, to layman's terms for the people in Ward 7, so in regards to Waterford, that there's 300 pending. So there's always been an issue where people thought that they were not able to expand in Waterford because there were issues with the water treatment plant, but that is not the case, and we are able to proceed with some of the development that's been on hold in Waterford. Is that correct?
That's correct. Through the chair, Councillor, Waterford was problematic a year or two ago. We had a lot of new developments that were handled through our planning department. Those now, we've passed the threshold, the plant's ahead of schedule, and we feel confident now that before those first toilets and bathtubs drain, that the capacity will be in place. So we're comfortable there. And that, just to maybe provide a comment on the negative side, again, these are developments that have been approved or are in principle, and by the time they actually become, inhabited, we have plans in place to make sure that we can provide the water and sewer. Okay. But those numbers are tight. We know that development in Dover and Simcoe continues to be very strong, and this is triggering some next steps that will come forward to you in the months ahead that will talk about what projects, capital projects, are we going to do to meet the need for your communities.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say on behalf of Ward 7, we're pleased to hear that news, and we're welcoming continued development in our ward as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman Columbus. My questions actually had to do with negative capacity as well, and we're all cleared up. Thank you.
You are too. Any other questions? Councillor Van Passen.
I would just like to say to staff, I've had not one complaint out of Ward 4 about the water and sewer systems.
You're lucky.
We don't have any.
I think Monty's quoting you. Anything further, folks? No? Okay, the recommendation is on your screen. Mover and a seconder? Or did you wish to speak to it, Madam Mayor?
I just wanted to add, Councillor Martin and I at Roma had some interesting discussions, and I hope that when we look at the kind of future of our water and wastewater servicing options, that we also perhaps look at some that haven't been considered in the past, such as joint cooperation with Alderman County. And I would be interested in seeing that report that was done some years ago that I believe has been dormant for some time. So I hope that we consider all options moving forward. And we have, did have a great opportunity to speak with Mayor Hewitt about this at length, and they're certainly interested in speaking with us further.
Mr. Chair, that's an excellent comment from the Mayor, and I think it's important, if I could just add, we call the project our interurban water supply, and that's which would eventually connect all our communities together. And it could mean putting a new water plant in that would pull water in from the lake. It could partner with Haldeman County at Nanticoke. All of that information is being polished up right now, and you're going to have that information for you in the near future. But you're right, we have to look at all things and not build a plant that's going to be for 200,000 people when we're never going to reach that. So we need to play that fine balance between making sure we have enough capacity for our growing community, but not too much that we can't afford. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, looking for us Haldeman did, though.
I recall a study done in the mid-1970s about feeding water from Nanticoke to Simcoe, Waterford, Delhi, and I even remember the roads that the pipe was running down on. It's before some of you were born, though. Anything further? Okay. So, need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation on the screen. Councillor Rabbits, mover. Councillor Taylor seconds that staff report DCS 1927, PW 19-11 Servicing Monitoring Report for 2018 be received as information, and that council endorses the servicing monitoring method outlined in this report, and that council directs staff to bring forward a report outlining future water and wastewater servicing options, timelines, and cost estimates. No further discussion. Those in favor? No one opposed? Thank you. That's carried. Okay, we're getting close to 5 o'clock. How about we take a 10-minute break before we hear the deputations? Okay, councilors, if you can please take your seats. The deputation time of 5 o'clock is here.